get checks that come in. You know, now as our foundation has grown, we get checks that come in all the time. I mean, it's $25, it's $10, it's $800, it's $150. It's just been amazing to see how something that was just kind of started and then it's just grown, and then the partnerships that we've been able to develop and see people get involved in this cause. So just an honor to be a part of it, and really just an honor to use this platform to give back, and just so thankful to have a partner like Kath who can kind of lead the way. She's just been unbelievable, and obviously this is a very personal thing for her and all of our family. So appreciate the support and opportunity to tell you about that today, and I hope everybody will go out and get the pins. Our team will all have these pins, and again, just do our part in creating the awareness, and it's my hope that one day there will be a cure, and that my kids or their kids won't deal with this. My mom had polio, and when she was a little girl, she spent most of her first 10, 11 years of her life was in the hospital, in the children's hospital. She had polio and she had scoliosis. I've still got a picture of my mother with her head almost touching her ankle. And, they had to build a new spine for her. But people were dying of polio, and then they came up with a cure. And, there's still people dying of polio in parts of the world that don't have access to the cure that we have. So I know that one day, that day will come where, we can cure people of breast cancer. And so hopefully when it's all said and done, people will look back and say, well, a lot of people made a difference. And it's certainly not just me and Kathy, it's so many people, just getting involved and helping us. So appreciate that support. And moving on to football, we're glad to be back in the Valley. It really is good to just be home for a couple of weeks here in a row. And, really want to challenge our crowd this week. I thought our crowd was outstanding this past week. Night game at Death Valley is special. Next 2 weeks, I think now have been announced that it's going to be 3:30. Whatever, ABC, ESPN, whichever one it turns out to be. But really want to challenge our crowd, because they're a difference maker for us. I mean, there's just no question. This is a difficult place to play when the crowd is rocking. And, everybody just doing their part. Obviously, we got to do our part on the field, but regardless of what's happening on the field, I just hope our crowd will be there with us for 4 quarters, because this is going to be a tough game. This is going to be a difficult game. We're going to have to play a lot better than we played this last week, and to have a chance to beat NC State. There's just no question about it. This is a team that's playing with confidence. This is a team that's playing with a lot of juice, and we're going to have to perform at a high level. Looking at NC State offensively, I think Coach Doran's done a great job. He's been there 1 year, but you can just kind of see the transformation taking place within their program. But they're a big challenge, offensively. They're a big challenge. I mean, they got tons of shifts and motions. They do an excellent job of really scheming you and attacking you and creating, big play opportunities. They have created a bunch of big plays against Florida State this past week. I mean, they had some guys just wide open. And a lot of that comes from just the defense being out of position and not being quite as disciplined as they need to be. Bunch sets, formations, wide, bringing them back in, picking tight ends up, moving them, shifting them, motioning guys. So we've got to be very disciplined there, and then because they want to run the ball, but the play action creates explosive plays for them. They're the #1 total offense in our conference. They're #2 scoring offense in our conference. They're been balanced, although they've thrown the ball. They threw a lot more against Florida State, but they've rushing it for 230 a game and throwing it for 274 a game, so averaging over 500 yards of offense to lead this league. Their offensive line is made up of a bunch of veterans. I mean, there's some 6'7" guys, 3 or 4 of them guys across the board. Again, veteran group. bunch of seniors and juniors. And then, but the biggest change in their whole program is the quarterback. This guy is a really, really good football player. Very impressed with what I've seen by their quarterback. He leads the ACC. There's some good quarterbacks in this league, and he leads the league in touchdowns, 13 touchdowns. He's big. Looks a lot like Jameis Winston. You know, you hate to compare a guy, but he looks a lot like him. He moves a lot like him. He breaks tackles and extends plays. I mean, there were some times last week that, I mean, there's no way that play should have happened, but it did. You know, Florida State had guys free, unblocked, but they didn't get him on the ground. And, you know, it may look good on the board, but getting it executed on the field is two different things. And he just created some big-time plays. First of all, breaking tackles. Secondly, his instincts. He's got a good presence in the pocket, stepping up and sliding, knowing when to run. And then he runs well. So very, very impressed with him. We'll have our hands full with that guy. They play 3 running backs. All 3 of them are factors. Shadrack, number 10, is explosive. Had a big score against us last year. They throw the ball to their backs a ton. The 21. Mays he's 2nd or 3rd in the league in all-purpose yards. He's their 2nd leading receiver on the team. They love to get the backs involved out of the backfield, also screening the ball to them. So we've got to be really dialed in on those guys, and they'll, like I said, play all 3 of them. Impressed with their tight end. You know, 86 is big. He's strong. He's a physical guy, but he's very effective in the passing game, and has become a weapon for them. And then they've always had good skill outside. They've always had, you know, you just every year NC State always has good receivers, and that's no different this year. So, but the biggest difference in them is they got a quarterback, and he is a really good player. So, big challenge there. Looking at them defensively, they lead our league in turnover margin. Obviously, that is the main reason, one of the big reasons why they're 4-1. Because they've created some big turnovers in some key situations. They created turnovers in this Florida State game this past week. I thought their defensive line was disruptive. They were active. You know, especially the guys inside, 69, 75. I mean, these guys were getting after it, pushing Florida State around. They got pressure on Jameis. They hit him. They knocked the ball loose, and again created some of those turnovers. Really impressed with what I've seen there. They are young. It's from a depth standpoint up front, but their frontline guys can play. So just you know, defensively playing a lot of man-to-man in the secondary. Got 3 starters back. Very physical group, and again we'll have to execute at a high level. Their punter, he leads the league in punting. They got excellent return guys. So you know, this is a football team that is much improved. And you know, for us, we're going to have to improve from where we were last week. We can't make some of the mistakes, especially some of the things that we did in the second half defensively. We got to put 4 quarters together, and again, hopefully our crowd will show up and help us bring that type of energy to the stadium as well. With that, I'll take your questions.
How does NC State compare to North Carolina, just when you start looking at sort of some of the numbers? They've been prolific on offense, maybe struggle a little bit on defense. Is there a comparison to be made there?
I just think, you know, they're better. You know, I think that they're better defensively. Got you know, more people. They've got 3 starters back in the secondary that have played a lot for them, and again they got a 5 veteran guys up front that are really good players. You know, they could play anywhere. You know, they 95. Norman, I think, is leading their team in sacks, and he's one of their top guys since he's been there in sacks. 69, 70, 75 is a load inside, and he was a load last year. So I mean, they're just they don't have a lot of depth right now, as they, again, it's just in the second year in their program. They're kind of transitioning, but their frontline guys are good players. And then offensively, they do a lot of things that create some issues for you. From a schematic standpoint and formationing, just a lot of, you got to be really disciplined against this bunch. But last year they were 3 of 16 on third down. That was the difference in the game. We were 10 of 19 on third down. They were 3 of 16. And that was the difference. But they're better at quarterback. I mean, this guy is playing with a swagger, and he's kind of raised everybody else's play. That's what those great ones do. They kind of make everybody else better too. And it's affected them in a lot of ways. Florida State, I thought settled in a little bit in the second half and kind of stopped the run, but they were still able to make some plays in the passing game. So I was impressed with really watching them on tape. They didn't play as well early in the season against a couple of those teams, but again, just like everybody, we're all trying to figure out who we are those first few games, especially when you got some new key pieces that you got to get in the right place and break in. And I think that they've done a nice job of pulling it together.
In terms of breaking in new pieces and learning some personnel, your offensive line continues to be in a state of flux, work in progress, whatever you want to call it. What's your concern level, and particularly in terms of how their ability to protect the franchise?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we've played some good teams, and we've been kind of baptism by fire, if you will. There's a lot more good than there is bad. A lot more good than there is bad. If you'd have told me 2 years ago that Kalen Davis would be the player that he is, I wouldn't have believed it. I wasn't really sure he really loved football enough a couple years ago. And he has been outstanding. I am so impressed with Kalen Davis. This guy has taken great ownership. He can play anywhere. The only thing we hadn't asked him to do is play center. And heck, we might need to see if we can do that too. But I'm telling you, he is really, this guy's going to make some money. He's going to make some money. We lost 2 good pieces last year. Brandon Thomas was a 3rd rounder with a torn knee. He's pretty good. Tyler Shadley made the 53-man with only 2 years of OL experience. So we lost those 2 guys, and there's been some transition. But I'm very pleased with Reed Webster. Reed Webster's a guy that, I wasn't sure he was going to make his mind up. He was kind of a guy that, to me, a couple years ago, just kind of seemed complacent to be a backup. Good, solid guy, but he has really come through for us and done a lot of good things. Norton has been good at times, not as consistent at times. Guillermo is still a developing player that has all the tools, still learning. He's getting his first significant action, and I think he's got a great future. Isaiah Battle is what we always tell you he is. He is a big-time future NFL talent, but not always as disciplined as we want him to be, but improving. The biggest part, he's physical. He's got a solid understanding of what we're doing, but not always committed technically like we need him to be, and it costs us at times. But he's improving, and I think he's got a bright future if he will be committed like he needs to be. And you're talking about a guy that really wasn't a football player. He was a basketball player that's kind of learning how, and just really in his first full year as the starter for us. So there's been a lot of positive. Crowder was a guy that really showed a lot of progress in camp. It's kind of, we got to kind of get him back on track. I think he has a very bright future. Maverick Morris is a young talent, hadn't gotten a lot of experience yet, not quite ready for the show, but we think we hit on him. We love Hearn. We love Falcinelli. We think those 3 freshmen to go along with Maverick and the 4 we got coming in here in January, those guys are really going to create a great future for us in the trenches. And then Joe Gore is, as y'all heard me say, probably had the best camp. I mean, he was really impressive in camp, and didn't play up to his potential in the Georgia game and even the South Carolina State game, but came back and kind of he didn't start against Florida State, but he did kind of play a little bit better, and then did some good things last week. So we have just trying to get them all, who's our best 5 and all that kind of stuff has been a little bit of a work in progress. We lost 4 guys, 3 to medical, and Giff and DeStefano and OJ, and we had 1 leave on us. So we are a work in progress, but the guys are competing. Those guys played their tails off down there at Tallahassee against as good a front as we're going to see. At 99 and 90 for Florida State, they don't come any better. And we went up and down the field, and those guys fought their tails off. So they're battle tested. After 4 games, there's very few teams out there that have had the challenge that this group has had out of the gate. Are we where we want to be? No. But I think if we can just continue to kind of pull them through the knothole, we'll be just fine. And we're going to improve in a lot of areas. But a lot of good. And I know most people just want to focus on the bad and things like that. And a lot of times people don't really understand what they're looking at. And the OL gets blamed for a lot of things that it's really not on the OL. But that's just kind of the nature of playing that position.
Looking at the replay, you could tell that Deshaun was telling whoever the center was the snap was here, the snap was down here, and it looked like it may have affected the timing on some of those run plays. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, some timing was an issue in the run game last week. But the biggest thing was just what North Carolina was doing, and we were a little stubborn and probably, should have stuck with a few things that we got away from, that we got frustrated with. But we also probably should have, attacked them a little bit more, because they were safeties. We had some unblocked guys making tackles that weren't accounted for, whether it be a safety, trap corners, whatever, where you got them hatted up and everything looks good. But we threw for 435 yards. And as I said last night, it's darned if you do, you darned if you don't. You throw for 400-something yards. What's wrong with the running game? And that's just the nature of it. You're never going to please everybody, but the bottom line is, we won the game, did what we needed to do, and we'll keep moving forward. I think coming into the game, if I'm North Carolina, I'm like, okay, I got a freshman starting. Let's see if he can beat us. They got some young guys outside that really still haven't really proven themselves yet. And I think as you continue to see Mike Williams improve, you see Artavis Scott, Damari got in there, you're seeing G-Hop and, how he's playing. Our tight ends getting involved. You see Deshaun making plays. Then I think that you're going to see some different structure from a defensive standpoint as we move through the season. And hopefully we can run the ball more efficiently. But we did have some timing issues. We had some things where we probably had our worst game at tight end as far as just at the point of attack. And we're missing Coop there. We're really missing Coop. And we think we're going to get him back this week, so we're excited about that. And then we had some things where the backs, we're trying to get number 9 going because we think he can really, create some explosive plays. And he's flying around. He's playing at another gear. He's just another gear, and we got to kind of tone him down just a little bit so we can, he can't beat the puller. If he beats the puller, then it's not going to be a good play. So he just gets, and Spiller was that way as a freshman. Spiller was, had to kind of learn to slow down just a little bit so that the play can be effective. And there was more there. We're fixing to probably have a 42-yard touchdown run by Deshaun, and we moved about a millisecond too soon by Reed Webster. You got to slow it down to the nth degree to see it, but he did. And so we missed some opportunities, and we weren't as efficient as we needed to be with what we did. But at the end of the day, we took what was there. And if we could have played a little bit better in a couple of situations defensively in the second half, there was more there. But we got to improve for sure in the running game.
Did Rod McDowell have different skill set, or was he more productive than the guys you have available right now?
No, we had Brandon Thomas, we had Shatley, we had Taj Boyd, we had Sammy Watkins. We got a bunch of unproven dudes right now. Again, if we had Sammy out there and Martavis out there and guys that were proven, and you got a record setter quarterback, it's not like, you know, I mean, they're coming in here and they're going to say, okay, well, let's load up. So there was more opportunity, you know, early in our season last year in the running game, just because of how we're built. But I think, again, as we continue to prove against good people, I mean, we've made some plays against good people. Our quarterback and our skill, young skill. And so I think, in fact, I was looking at it last night. You take our freshman, our freshman Artavis, and then the two sophomores, Hopper and Mike Williams, and you compare them to, after 4 games, to Sammy, who was the freshman, and Nuke and Martavis, who were the two sophomores. We're more productive after 4 games with those 3 guys than what we were with those other 3 when they were freshmen, sophomores. You know, what does that mean? I don't know. I'll just tell you, but people see that, and so these guys are kind of proving that they're capable of making some plays. And then obviously we're transitioning at quarterback, but as we prove that we got a guy back there that can beat you throwing the football, there will be more opportunity. But I love the people that we have at back. You know, Adam Choice got a deep thigh bruise last week and was limited. He's a guy that we really, you know, are excited about and has a bright future. But, you know, Rod McDowell was a 5th-year senior that had, man, just, you know, put everything he had into having a great season, and he did. You know, rushed for over 1,000 yards. Or we rushed, you know, we had 1,000-yard rusher, 1,000-yard passer, 3,000-yard passer, 1,000-yard receiver. And only us and Baylor have done that 3 years in a row. So, you know, we've got a good system and a good plan in place. But again, we're in a little bit of transition on that side, and we don't have all the answers today. But I know this: we've played some really good people, and we've been in position to win every game. We have to improve. We got some guys that have to improve individually, and we got to have some. We got some guys that got to grow up and really learn how you have to prepare daily. But you know, we're getting better. That's all you can ask.
Yeah, well, you may have dealt with this situation a few years ago when Sammy was a freshman. But when you have a guy who looks as polished as Deshaun has so far, what kind of challenges in coaching him does that bring?
Well, I always think it depends on the individual. You know, who is he? What's his DNA? What's his background? And, you know, you got some guys that can have that big success early, and it's probably a distraction because they're, you know, probably not very mature, and you kind of can see it coming. But then you have other guys like Deshaun who are really wise and mature beyond their years. And Sammy was the same way. He was the same way. You know, and we all know he you know, got himself in a bad situation. He had 1 issue in 3 years. And you're talking about a guy that was the face of everything. I mean, he just, you know, he couldn't go anywhere, nowhere. And you know, I was very impressed with how he matured and handled the platform and the growth as far as his popularity and everybody wanting a piece of him. And I think Deshaun is wired the same way. I think he's very, very focused on what he wants. He's never been a distracted guy. He's always been very serious, and he's a very studious guy. He's got a maturity to him that is rare for a young guy, very rare. But he's been through a lot. He's been through a very tough cancer situation with his mother. You got to remember, the guy's been committed since he was a 10th grader. You know, he's just not your typical guy. You know, wasn't caught up in the recruiting process. You know, he just very focused. And he's been a leader for a long time, and he's had a platform, and he understands his responsibility that comes with that position. Way more than what a lot of young people, I think, normally would have. So you know, but we gotta do a good job of managing that whole situation. I mean, he's not a redshirt freshman; he is a true freshman, and I think you know, we're going to have some challenges along the way. He's going to have a bad game. There's going to be a time where he looks like a freshman, And all the people that are cheering for him are going to boo him, and talk about what's wrong with Deshaun. He's got. I think he gets all that. So he's just got a level head to him, and we'll keep coaching him up. I think limiting him from a media standpoint. Because if not, it'll be exhausting. He's a freshman, and he needs to continue to grow and prepare and be focused on what he needs to focus on. And he's got responsibilities there too, but I think we got to be smart with how we handle him in that regard as well.
Can you talk a little bit more about how he's wired compared to Sammy? Because they both seem sort of at the same point in their lives have that they just kind of expect that this is what's supposed to happen. They're supposed to play well.
And they were similar in the recruiting process. Sammy Watkins was the same way. Just never was caught up in recruiting, never distracted by it, knew what he wanted to do, committed early, said, that's what I'm coming to, and I remember that particular year, we didn't really have a good year that year, and, he just never flinched. He knew exactly what he wanted to do, and